.300 seconds of light, I strongly believe that that is a sweet spot for most photographers. I'm going to go through the specs of the CITI300 Pro from Pixapro, also known as the Godox CITI300 Pro, and I'm going to explain why I believe that 300 seconds is that perfect sweet spot. So 300 seconds, why do I believe that that is the perfect sweet spot for most photographers? Well, if you find yourself in a studio environment and you're shooting portraits, 300 seconds is going to be more than enough in a studio environment where you can control the whole ambient light. If you're shooting product photography in the studio, 300 seconds is going to be pretty much more than enough in the studio. You'll find very limited time that you'll find yourself that you'll be wanting more power than 300 seconds. Food photography on location, again, 300 seconds is more than enough to create some beautiful images. So if you find yourself you want to be photographing outside, balancing the daylight and the bright sun, 300 seconds is going to allow you to do that. As you saw in that video there, obviously I know it wasn't bright sun, but to create a really dramatic, moody portrait at f20, 200th of a second, and still only be at half power, it kind of shows how much power you need when you're outside shooting portraits. Now the 300 Pro comes with a really good modern light, a 12-watt modern light. Now I know there was a couple of people who complained about the brightness of the modern light, so couldn't really use it outside in bright daylight. Didn't really understand why that was an issue, because I've never really used a modern lamp outside in bright daylight. I always use it in a studio environment, and I find that that 12 watts is more than enough in a studio environment. If I'm shooting portraits, it's perfect. If I'm shooting products, it's perfect. Obviously the light on it as well is bi-colour, so you can control the colour temperature from, I think it's 3000 to 6000, so you've got a lot of range there. It'll run at about 2.5 hours at full power as well. You couldn't use it for a main video light if you're somebody who wants to shoot video, because obviously the fan kicks in really noisily. But if you're somebody who likes to shoot a lot of B-roll, you've got that in one unit. That turns into a quite nifty little handy video light to use in your video work as well. So to have it in one unit is really good, and to have 2.5 hours of run time out of that, again, is a massive plus as well. So when are you going to be needing more than 300 seconds of light? Well, obviously this has high speed sync, allows you to shoot past your shutter speed, so it allows you to freeze a lot of action, but it also has a fast flash duration of up to 1/10,000th of a second at its lower power setting. And that's really when you're going to be needing and finding that you want more power. So if you're outside and you want to kind of overcome the bright sun or balance that daylight look in your images, but you need that power to freeze the action as well, that's probably when you're going to be needing more than 300 seconds of light. That's when you're kind of going to be looking at a 1200 second light, so you can kind of use the fast flash duration as it's meant to be, or use high speed sync and get a lot more power out of your unit, because when you use high speed sync, it reduces the power output of every light that you use. So whether it's a speed light, the 200, the 300, the 400, 600, up to the 1200, when you use high speed sync, it lowers the power output of your flash. So that's when really you would only need more power out of a light. So you've got to kind of ask yourself is how many times you're going to find yourselves in those situations when you need that kind of power from one light. Personally speaking, I've never found myself in that situation yet, and that's why I think 300 watt settings is the perfect sweet spot, because it's going to cover 95% of subjects that you're going to be photographing. I really do think that's a great sweet spot for many photographers. So if you're in the market for a light, 300 watt seconds is definitely that sweet spot for many photographers, and you won't be disappointed. It will grow with you, and I don't think it'll never outgrow you either. So 300 watt seconds, perfect. So let's look at the specs of the 300 Pro from Pixapro. It comes with a 26 milliamp battery, 2600 milliamp battery. It's going to give you about 320 full power shots from one charge. Now, you're never going to use 320 full power shots in one go, so it's going to last you a long time. Obviously, we've touched on the modern lamp. I think it's great. Being bi-colour, being able to control that modern lamp as well is always a plus for me. The batteries, got to mention that. If you do own a 200, a Pica 200, the batteries will fit out of that 200 into here also, so you've got a spare battery on hand if you're buying this unit. All the controls are on the back. It has a great adjustments. You can go from 1/10 adjustments, I think, in 9-stop range. So there's a lot of control there. If you're in the studio shooting product photography and you want to really dial in that light, got a lot of control over that also. What else have we got? If you already own any of the Pixapro range, they're going to work with the one system. They're going to work with one trigger. So if you, like me, I have the speed lights, I have the Pixapro 200, the 600, they all work seamlessly together through the one system. So all you need to make sure is you can buy the right trigger for your camera, which allow you to control all of the lights in that ecosystem. So it's a really cool ecosystem to get into, and one that will work and grow with you if you ever need to add more lights to your studio setup. It has fast flash recycling times, 1.5 seconds at full power, which is more than enough for me. It does have its own mount. It's the Godox mount. It's a smaller version kind of the Bones mount, but you can't actually buy, which I have, is the bracket, which the light will sit in there, and then I can adapt any Bones mount light modifier that I have to this bracket, which is really, really handy. So I did want to put this video together because I know there's a lot of people out there kind of wondering how much light they're going to be needing, what kind of light they're going to be buying for their next light, what kind of light will grow with them. And I really believe that a 300 watt second is the sweet spot for most photographers. Technology is just getting better and better. The units are getting smaller and smaller, so it's really, really a versatile little light. Not too heavy, only coming in at 1.5 pounds. So it's going to fit your bag. You're going to be able to take it with you wherever you go. You're going to be able to adapt it to any of the lights or the Godox lights modifiers. So a really great light to have in the bag, and what that's going to cover most of your photography needs. I just think that obviously that 300 watt seconds of light is more than enough for most situations, and I don't think you'll ever find yourself wanting more in those situations either. So I really wanted to put this together to show you guys kind of the range that you will need in certain situations. So hopefully this will help you decide whether 300 watts is enough for you or whether it's not enough for you. So I really hope you found it helpful. If you have found it helpful, give it a thumbs up. Why not consider subscribing to the channel as well to see more reviews and videos like this and tutorials which will be coming down the line. And with that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See you then.